trade. So everything referred Kedah as an important port to the Indians. Next. And the most important thing is the Sanskrit text. We call it the Ashta Sahasrita, Pratnya Marathika Sutra, and the footnote down there. It is mentioned over here. It is here. Those who can be able to read from me, this Prataka, Dvipa, okay? Valapati, Parvati, Lokanata. So the god Lokanata living on top of a mountain of Kedah. Okay, so that is the thing that motivates us to go to the cave to look for temples. Okay, next. And then we have the Suparajataka. Okay, Suparajataka was written somewhere maybe in the 6th century CE. So they mentioned about the 2 ports of Suvarnabhumi, and the 12th century commentary of that text mentioned that Suvarnabhumi, Pattada Dwayam, Lankasuka, Katariba. So the 2 ports of Suvarnabhumi mentioned in Suparajataka was actually Lankasuka in the east coast and Kedah in the west coast. So it pretty much showed that there were 2 main economic centers in the Malay Peninsula during this time, which is Kedah and Lankasuka. Okay, next. And then we have the Garuda Purana. Okay, so the Kedah is often mentioned as part of the Jambu Dipa. You know, so Kataha is mentioned surrounding Pranata Marsha alongside with Indra Dipa, Kaseruman, Tamra Varna, and all the other places. And they also mentioned Simhala also. So Kedah was also mentioned in the Hindu text. Okay, Garuda Purana and Vamana Purana. Next. And also we have a tantric text. So they said that the place is indeed Kumara Dipa and Pushkar Dipa, and furthermore Katha Dipa, and beyond this lies Chinabisa, which is China. So we can see the geographical understanding of these Indians of Kedah. Okay, next. And we also have Arab records, but most of the Arab records can be dated a bit later, which is around 9th to 10th century CE, and they pretty much describe Kedah, ancient Kedah in the same light by the Indians, center for trade. Okay, next. So from the 9th century CE, so we have several ones. So for instance, we have Akhbar, Asim Wajisi, Waqid, Ibn Khutabi, Yaqubi. Next. Okay, next. So we can see that throughout the development of ancient Kedah, from the 2nd century CE until the 14th century CE, we have records non-stop, continuously mentioned about Kedah, initially by the Indians and then followed by the Arabs. But it is continuous record, which shows that ancient Kedah developed from the 2nd to the 14th century CE. So the historical record had already established that. Okay, we have historical record to confirm that ancient Kedah existed from the 2nd to the 14th century CE. Anything earlier than that, we need more evidence. So some people say that it can be dated to 788 BC and already, no evidence for that yet. So we need historical record. Okay, so the historical has already confirmed that. Okay, next. Now, what is the chronology of Indian records on ancient Kedah? 2nd to 14. Okay, the last record being the commentary of this Silapalikara, okay, which is around the 20th century. How frequent has Kedah been mentioned in the Indian Arab records? Extremely frequent. You know, in different all type of texts that you have the religious text, you have the literary text, you have the Tamiyan descriptions, you have the Tamiyan poems, everything mentioned about Kedah. And how does the Indian view actually Kedah in terms of geography and politics? This is a very tricky issue, because different sources would describe Kedah in different lights. Some sources would view Kedah as a port. Some sources would view Kedah as a seat of power. Some sources would view Kedah as a geographical area. Some sources would view Kedah as an archipelago. So different sources will say different things, so we cannot paint everything in the same color. So it is context specific. So for the traders, they would view Kedah as a port. But which port are we talking about? Because Kedah is not just Rodziadi, there are also other ports like Aquaba, maybe Kolas Rinsing, maybe somewhere in the Khaw Isthmus, because Kedah covered pretty much the west coast of the time Malay Peninsula. We need to be specific. So the lack of specific is at the record pose some problem for us, and that is why we go to archaeology. Okay? Next. So enough with historical records. You know, when it comes to historical record, it opens to lots of debates. You know, some people can say that this record were, copied down many times, there could be some inaccuracy, but we cannot lie when it comes to archaeology. Because in archaeology, we look for facts. And the facts are something that we can see, something that we can touch, it is something tangible, and it is something very clinical. If it is there, it is there. If it is not there, you cannot make it there. Okay, so we base everything on excavation. So that is why, in our approach to study Kedah, our point of departure must be archaeology first. We must discover something before we say anything. And then after we discover, then you can refer to the historical text. And if the archaeology is not consistent with the historical text, then we can be able to reject the historical text. Everything must be based on something tangible. Okay, next. So, the Bujang Valley as the economic center of ancient Kedah. How do we know that Bujang Valley was the economic center of Kedah? Based on the sheer number of archaeological sites. J.S. Allen documented around 88 sites, and Mokhtar Saidin documented around 97 sites, I think, in Sungai Batu. And based on our new survey, we have detected more. So we can be able to document around 184 archaeological sites. 184. The sheer number of archaeological sites, which can be dated somewhere between the 4th to the 13th, 14th century, it showed that during this period, the economic center was located there. And most of the archaeological sites are concentrated to the south of Rodziadi. Now I'm going to answer why the focus on this area. Okay, so we have one isolated site to the north in Bukit Choras, one in the south in Chorak, but 99% of the sites are located inside the crescent. Okay, so we call it the Bujang Valley crescent here. Next. So what kind of archaeological remains that we have in the Bujang Valley? I think I can be able to classify them into 4 types. Number 1, we have the ritual spaces. So the ritual spaces are Hindu and Buddhist temples. And it is not just the temples, but we have other artifacts which can associate with the temples, such as statues, inscriptions, ornaments, 14 tablets, everything I combine together as ritual spaces. Okay, so we have to discuss about this later. And then we have exchange sites. Exchange site is the place, this port where we bring all the material and exchange. And most of the material consisted of ceramics. We have Chinese ceramics, Indian ceramics, Indian pottery, Arab glasses, everything mixed together. But whatever we find is just less than 10% of the things that were traded, because I believe that most of them were perishable materials. So those are the stuff that we have. The amount of commodities which were traded in the Kedah could have been bigger. But we just discovered that the ceramic because they could last long. Okay. Number 3, we have production centers. It is the place where they produce their own commodities, and one of the most important commodity produced by Nasha was the iron ingots, where we excavated the Sungai Batu archaeological site. But iron is not the only thing that we produce. There were beads, ornaments, glass beads. They also produce lots of pottery. Okay? And there were also other things, also maybe rainforest product coming from the upper reaches of the Mura River. And then we have GP sites in Sungai Batu. Okay? So there are 4 groups of archaeological remains that we excavated in the Bujang Valley. Next. So these are the temples excavated in the 1930s by college fields, but most of them have been destroyed by natural factors, because after they excavated, I think during that time they don't have post-excavation conservation method yet, So after they excavate, they left. So many of them were already destroyed, unfortunately. Next. So we also have some sites excavated in the 60s and 70s by the Department of Museums. The sites that are still well preserved, but unfortunately the way they do excavation back then, after they excavated, they reconstructed. Once you reconstruct a site, the context is lost already. So we cannot study them because they actually disassemble the temple and they rebuild them. So they were not original anymore. So we don't do that anymore. We excavate and we conserve them as it is right now. Okay, next. So in Pengkalan Bujang, 3 sites have been reconstructed, but the number 1, site 23, was left, and as it is. So we are still able. Fortunately, they were excavated in the early 2000s. So that's why we are able to conserve it as it is right now. So they can still be studied, yeah. But for the rest, not anymore because they reconstructed. Sometimes they use cement. So not very wooden in a way, yeah. Okay, thanks. And aside from the structures that we discovered, we also discovered lots of stone carvings which accompanies the temples. Many of them are stone pedestals. We also discovered lingams and everything. And many of the stone carvings are made of granite stone. Those are very hard stone to shape. Next. We also have statues and inscriptions, and these have been preserved in the Rodziadi Archaeological Museum. Next. This is one of the most important pieces that we discovered back in the 1850s, and they are being preserved in the Maritime Museum in India. Yeah? But this is one of the best pieces that we have from Rodziadi. Next. And we also have lots of statues, and before the year 2023, many of the statues they are not very complete, they are very small, yeah, and they were not discovered through a proper scientific excavation. They discover the statue, they take out no proper documentation during the time because of technology during that time. That is what the best that we could do with the technology during that period. So unfortunately, we are not able to properly interpret these findings, because of the lack of robustness of the documentation. Next. We also have the Buddha statues, and the Buddha statues, they are roughly made, and they are made of clay, and the iconography is very austere, so there is nothing much that we can make from it. And also again, they were not discovered through a proper scientific excavation. Yeah? Next. Okay, this is a Vishnu statue actually. Very small, and it was discovered in a Buddhist site. So there's some mixture because the religious identity don't really exist during that time. So maybe locals could just participate in some rituals. Maybe a Hindu can just bring an offering to a Buddhist temple and vice versa. Next. And we also have lots of offering. Okay, next. And we also have highest landing site, which is the Buddha River. Next. This is Sungai Batu, where they discovered lots of clear, lots of highest landing sites. Next. The jetty sites that I mentioned, also in Sungai Batu. Next. Now, so we mentioned about the different historical records regarding ancient Kedah, and some of the records they mentioned Kedah as Khaw, the islands of Kedah. Okay? In the Arabic records, they mentioned Kedah as Khaw, also the islands of Kedah, the Kedah archipelago. And then when we go to Rodziadi today, what we are going to see are mostly mangrove swamps and paddy fields. However, we did some value environmental studies on Rodziadi, and it appears that before the 14th century CE, the sea level was higher, and Kedah was in fact a big bay surrounded by islands. Okay, we can see over here the yellow outline is the ancient coastline of Kedah, and we can see the different hills in Kedah today. It was actually islands. For instance, over here we have I think this is Bukit Penjara, Bukit Meriam, Bukit Puteri. So those are Bukit, but in those days they were islands. And when you look at the location of the ancient coastline and the location of archaeological sites, the red dots archaeological sites, they are all located on the ancient coastlines. So you can see the ancient Kedah as a large bay surrounded by several rivers, and most of the settlements are concentrated at the river mouth within this bay. Okay? So inside ancient Kedah, we can see the Sungai Buddha, the Buddha River, which connects the coastal area with the interior of the Thai Peninsula, which is very rich with rainforest products. We have Sungai Batu up there. It is located at the foot of Gunung Jerai, which is very rich with iron ore. And then we have Sungai Puncak, also located at the foot of Gunung Jerai, but they have sandy coast, which is good for the development of port. So we have a big bay surrounded by islands, and ships can be able to safely harbor inside the bay. So you can see the geography. That is why Rodziadi became the center of geography. And also Rodziadi is located at the entrance of the Strait of Malacca. So ships coming from India, they would just go into the bay to have a safe voyage. Is that it? And at the same time, they are rich with reverse product. They have lots of clay, they have lots of stones, they have enough population to support the port. So it was a natural port located strategically at the entrance of the Strait of Malacca. So it is because of the environment. It is because of location. And at the same time, we see the geopolitical development during that time. You know, the rise of several Indian kingdoms, the economic centers in China, you know, combined with the geostrategic position and the geography of Kedah, which led to the emergence of ancient Kedah as a center for trade. So we want to view the emergence of ancient Kedah, we need to look at the region. So we cannot study Kedah in isolation. We need to understand regional history, what happened in India during that time, what happened in China during that time, and at the same time we need to focus on the study of Mali environment also, because the environment today and the environment 1,000 years ago is different. So archaeology again is not just about digging and looking for temples and looking for beautiful stuff. No, it is about focusing on the micro evidences. You know, we need to look at pollen, we need to look at the chemical content of the soil. We need to fly our drone over the site to look for the natural features of the area. So it is really a multidisciplinary project, and that is how USN managed to do the project properly, because we have lots of academic staff from different expertise. What I do is to combine the different data and try to make sense of them. Okay, next. And then we have the reconstruction. So that is how the coastline of Kedah look like. But this is a very rough reconstruction. So we are going to have a special project to reconstruct how the coastline changes over time. Now we just have it during the peak of development of ancient Kedah, so we wanted to understand. So now we are going to do lots of drilling, lots of analysis on the soil sample. So maybe in the future, maybe give me 4-5 years, maybe we can get a proper reconstruction. Okay. So archaeology, again, archaeology is a very slow process. Don't ask me when am I going to complete the excavation. I don't know. Depends on what I'm going to discover during the upcoming excavation. So we go things as we can. Next. So based on our understanding regarding the distribution of sites in the Bujang Valley, it appears that within Bujang Valley there are 3 main settlements, and each settlement would have their own specific economic functions. Number 1, we have Sungai Batu. Okay, Sungai Batu is over here. So the red circle is the economic center, where they have most of the highest earning sites. And the blue circle is the interior part of Sungai Batu, which we have not yet surveyed. So we are going to do that soon by using our LiDAR. Okay, we haven't done that yet, so maybe there were more sites for that. And then the second group, we have Sungai Muda. Over here, we have all the economic centers, you know, the exchange sites. The big production area is all in the estuary, the ancient estuary of the Muda River. And when we go upriver, we can survey several dispersed temple sites, which maybe constitute the location for settlements. And then we have number 3, the Sungai Bujang complex. The economic center is located over here. You have the exchange sites, the ports and everything. When you go upriver, you can find the religious sites. So we have the economic center at the estuary, and when you go upriver, we have the ritual spaces and the settlement. And Kedah can be divided into 3 complexes: Sungai Bujang, Sungai Batu, and Sungai Buda. And at the same time, we have isolated sites, mostly religious. So you see the purple circles, so those are temple sites located away from the economic center. So in order for us to understand the political configuration of ancient Kedah or the Bujang Valley, then we need to look at a bird's eye view on the archaeological site. So we need to understand the relation between the archaeological site and the environment. Until then, we can understand, not just by looking at the temple only. You need to understand under what kind of environment the temple was built, under what kind of geopolitical situation, under what kind of economic condition that the temples were built. Now, this is the approach that we use now. Next. So the Buda River, I believe the economic center of ancient Kedah was located at the Buda River because it was the largest river system in ancient Kedah. Okay, so the economic center is over here, and the estuary goes into the bay. So the red color ones, the red color are the temple site, the yellow dots are the exchange sites and the industrial sites. So they are all located next to each other. Most of the religious sites are located near the economic centers, and when we go upriver, there are few more dispersed sites. Okay, mostly are religious sites. Okay, and the function of Sungai Bulang, number 1, center for trade. Number 2, meat production. Number 3, pottery production. And number 4, we don't have the direct evidence for that, but maybe the center for reference products. Because at the upper reaches of the Muda River, it is reproducible. So maybe they brought all the commodity and looked at the estuary of the river and they trade for that. Okay, that is settlement 1. Number 2, next. We have the Bujang River. So over here, the yellow dots are the exchange sites where we discovered not temples but hordes of ceramics. You know, where the dump all the ceramic, we call it the trade dump. Usually a trade dump is a place where they throw away all the broken ceramic. You know, and that suggests, that implies the presence of a population center and exchange sites. And within the trade dump, we discovered Chinese ceramics mixed with Indian ceramics, mixed with Persian and Arabian ceramics all together. And next to the port sites, we discovered lots of Hindu and Buddhist temples mixed together also. The location of Hindu and Buddhist temples is like 20 or 30 meters from each other, built by using the same material. So religion was not too important during the time this money. And then when we go upriver, we discover more Hindu and Buddhist sites, and all of them can be dated somewhere between the 7th to the 14th century CE. Next, we have Sungai Batu. We just have one Buddhist site in Sungai Batu, okay, in the middle over here, surrounded by iron smelting sites. Okay, and the upriver area, this area, you see the jungle over here, or the rim the palm oil estate had not yet been properly surveyed. Okay, so we are going to do it maybe the end of this year. Okay, when we have free time. So we have 3 settlements. Each settlement with their specific economic functions. Sungai Batu, produce iron. Sungai Bujang, center for trade. And Sungai Buda, the center for food production, center for trade, center for the collection of reference products. And all of them are located within the Bay of Kedah. So this is really a polycentric form of governance. You know, we have authority was distributed over 3 populations, where each population will have their own economic functions. Okay, next. Recent excavation, right? The thing that I showed here were the archaeological sites discovered until the year 2008, maybe. Or 2011. Also. However, in 2023, we begin our new excavations. And the excavation is not just in Bukit Joras, we also did excavation in other areas that we didn't tell everyone to get as well as put here. Okay, next. So, you know, like I said earlier, we don't just dig and discover beautiful stuff, but to answer specific research objectives. We must have a proper research problems to begin any excavation. We don't just excavate, like I said earlier. And number 1, the research issue is the issue of state of preservation assemblage on the starting temples. Most religious sites that we have in the Bujang Valley is not in a very good state of preservation due to the natural factors. Okay, the sites are located near to river valleys and there were lots of floods and near the temple had collapsed. Those which had already been excavated were not excavated in a proper way. I don't blame the scholars, it is because of the method during that time. Okay, after they excavated, especially during Wales time, they simply left and no conservation, and as a result, we are not able to return to the site to collect data. And then those excavated in the 70s, although they were excavated in a proper way, but they reconstructed the temple, so we cannot study them anymore because they were not in the proper context. So that is issue number 1. Number 2, the lack of assemblage. In most temples, I think not most, in all temples in the Bujang Valley, we don't have complete assemblage of religious objects. For instance, in site SB1B of Sungai Batu, we discovered a temple, 1 inscription. No statue, no motif tablet. So we cannot have a very complete interpretation regarding the religious feature of the site. Site number 2, Kampung Gunung Dalam, we discovered a temple and 1 inscription, no statue. Site number 21 to 23, 19 to 23, we discovered statue. We discovered temple and statue, but no inscription. Some site we just discover statues, some site we just discover structures. So we have never discovered a single temple with everything inside it. So because of the lack of assemblage, our interpretation regarding the artistic features of the religious rituals is not very robust. So we need to look for a site with a complete assemblage of artifacts. And actually we cannot do this up to our luck now. If we discover a complete site, then it is we just want a jackpot. Okay. So number 2, environmental context and distribution. We know the location of the sites, but how does the location of the site relate to its environment? And in order to understand that, we need to run a proper LiDAR imaging and drone imaging. So before this year, we never had any LiDAR yet. So we just got LiDAR and we have just started. So we need to understand the spatial characteristic of the site. So how does the location of the site relate to the immediate environment and the environmental surrounding it? Number 3 is the marine environment. Although we already know the location of the Asian coastline, those are very rough reconstruction. We need to look at other data also. Okay, so we need to have a more detailed reconstruction. And number 4, the most important thing is the study of chronology and synchronization with regional development. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 main complexes. The thing is, different complex have different sites. Different sites have different chronology. So we need to study every single site, determine the chronology, and then we have to put them together. So this kind of research is going to take maybe 4 or 5 generations to do, but we do what we can. So because of all these research issues, we need to conduct fresh excavations on single site. So since the year 2023, our archaeological team had conducted excavations and surveys in 3 sites. Number 1 in Bukit Choras, number 2 in Sungai Batu, and number 3, the last known, we did also survey in the upper reaches of the Muda River. When the Muda dam, the water went down, it actually exposed lots of artifacts. So I will show you guys the artifacts that we collected. Okay? Next, ada photo lah. Okay, so now we can see how do we view ancient Kedah. This is the fact right now. The red dots are the location of the archaeological sites that we have. To the north, we have Bukit Choras. Coming here, Sungai Bujang, Sungai Batu, Sungai Kedah, and then towards the south is Cerak Toku, the southmost side. So the orange outline is the location of the ancient coastline. So we can see Rodziadi as a string of coastal segments. So the ships will come and they will stop in Bukit Choras, and then they will enter the bay, and then when we go down, we found another stopping point, which is the inscription in Cerak Toku. So the dotted line is the area, is the coastline which I imagine we have not yet do a proper survey on it. Okay, we need more research on it. Okay, so let us talk about Bukit Choras. So just now it's just an introduction, now is everything. Okay, thanks. Okay, Bukit Choras archaeological project. So this is the real stuff that we do. It's a very long introduction thing. Okay, so this is the Bukit Choras archaeological site. Okay, so the site was first reported in the year 1850 and then excavated first time in the year 1937, but it was just a trial excavation. Fortunately, it was a trial excavation, not they just excavated a few holes. So it was located 8 kilometers from the coastline, but our study showed that before the 14th century city, it is just 1 kilometer from the coastline. Fluctuation was still low. Okay, next. So the phase 1 was back in 2023. When we started the excavation, we were not too convinced that there was anything there, because from the look at the amount, it doesn't look very promising. Next. Okay, so due to the lack of budget, then we have to build all the tank by ourselves. So that my crew started to climb trees and everything. So next. Okay, this is how the mound looks like before excavation, 2023. So it is a big mound, big hole in the middle with lots of broken laterite blocks. So I told my students that you are lucky if you can do this. I don't think that we are going to find anything intact. I think, don't you remember I said that? I said I'm not sure. No, I think I complained to you about the site. I said I'm not going to find anything here. Okay, next. Okay, remove all the line and everything. Next, as we started digging, all we discovered was just broken pieces of latrine blocks. And I was too afraid to take out the latrine block because I thought the broken